Thank you, Eileen and Doxy. How about that? Good morning and happy Easter. Welcome to 11:11. We're going to rock out now.
All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 11:11. I looked out. I didn't see anybody leave, so we're good. Welcome to 11:11. You know, we thought about how to start off April Fools on Easter. We thought about whoopee cushions in all the chairs. We thought about other kinds of things we might do. We thought about at one point we might just sort of put a sign up. You all show up, and then it just says April Fools on the door, and there's nobody here. We thought that'd be the perfect, message for Easter Sunday and resurrection. But we decided we'd open up with Footloose and see what happens. So it's good to see you all here. It is kind of a Footloose Sunday. Thanks, Hannah, for dancing. Yeah. You're in your own world. That's awesome. So it is a Footloose Sunday. It is a Sunday to celebrate. It's God's yes and to life. In spite of what life throws at us, in spite of where we find ourselves, in spite of what we tell ourselves, this is God's yes and. This is our Sunday to celebrate. So we're mostly going to celebrate with music and reflection. And the other point about it is that it's all here. Everything is here. The way we designed these worship services is that it's from beginning to end, the instructions for life. You know, if you were there's a Zen cookbook or Zen book that I always loved as a young adult in college. I studied with some Zen friends, and it was called Instructions to the Cook. And it was all about being in the kitchen, but the whole thing was about Zen. It was every instruction, every little step. Well, that's the way our service is designed. Every little step is here. And the reason why we do it that way, the reason why you pay attention from beginning to end, is because that's the way it is with life. God doesn't come in every now and then. God doesn't wait to be present. God is present. We live and move and have our being in God, so it's there. It's always there. It's just a matter of opening up and being present to where God is already present with us. So enjoy this morning and pay attention. And let's say together our call to gathering here, our welcome candle. It's lit, so read with me, please. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times, come yet again. In just a minute, Brad's going to invite you to stand and sing, and we're not doing our offering. This is not our normal arrangement. Those of you who are brand new with us and visiting for the first time, we're normally in the round, but because we had it's Easter and this crowd before this, and so we decided to keep it this way, so it's a little different. And so instead of coming forward during this next song, we'll pass the offering plates, and you can put your registration offerings in those in a little bit. So for now, we just stand and we sing.
Please stand and sing, yes. Good old hymn, I bet you know it. Here we go. Joyful, joyful.
Would it be? I'll tell you what, I'll just stand to the side. I'm going to be moving in and out.
Lord of love, hearts unfold like flowers before the opening to the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive our fear and doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the light of day. Verse 2, come on. All thy works with joy surround me. Earth and heaven reflect thy rays. Stars and angels sing around me. Center of unbroken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, cloudy meadow, flashing sea, chattering bird and flowing fountain. and roll. Nice work, people. Take a moment, and would you offer one another a sign of peace, please?
There we are, yeah. So I don't see Jakey here this morning. I'm not sure Jakey got caught in traffic or got caught somewhere, so we'll wait and see if he shows up here in a little bit. He can do his thing shortly, and then otherwise we'll get started. But we're going to go ahead and pass the offering plates now during this song.
Pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? All I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Yes, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Yeah, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs. 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs. these songs of freedom, songs of freedom.
A reading from Isaiah 58. Shout, a full-throated shout. Hold nothing back, a trumpet blast shout. Tell my people what's wrong with their lives. Face my family Jacob with their sins. They're busy, busy, busy at worship and love studying all about me. To all appearances, they're a nation of right-living, God-honoring people. They ask me, what's the right thing to do? And love having me on their side. But they also complain. Why do we humble ourselves and you don't even notice? Well, here's why. The kind of faith and practice you do won't get your prayers off the ground. This is the kind of faithful practice I'm after, to break the chains of injustice, get rid of exploitation in the workplace, free the oppressed, cancel the debts. I'm interested in seeing you share your food with the hungry, invite the homeless poor into your homes, put clothes on the shivering ill-clad, being available to your own families. Do this and the lights will turn on and your world will turn around at once. Your compassionate living will pave your way. The God of glory will sustain your passage. Then when you pray, God will answer. You'll call out and I'll say, here I am. And from 1 Corinthians. Jews ask for signs and Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, which is a scandal to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ is God's power and God's wisdom. This is because the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength.
Fish story. Excuse me. Once there was a fish who lived in the great ocean, and because the water was transparent and always conveniently got out of the way of his nose when he moved along, he didn't know he was in the ocean. Well, one day the fish did a very dangerous thing. He began to think, surely I am a most remarkable being, since I can move around like this in the middle of empty space. Then the fish became confused because of thinking about moving and swimming, and he suddenly had an anxiety paroxysm and thought he had forgotten how. At that moment, he looked down and saw the yawning chasm of the ocean depths, and he was terrified that he would drop. Then he thought, if I could catch hold of my tail and my mouth, I could hold myself up. And so he curled himself up and snapped at his tail. Unfortunately, his spine wasn't quite supple enough, so he missed. As he went on trying to catch hold of his tail, the yawning black abyss below became ever more terrible, and he was brought to the edge of a total nervous breakdown. The fish was about to give up when the ocean, which had been watching with mixed feelings of pity and amusement, said, "What are you doing?" "Oh," said the fish, "I'm terrified of falling into the deep, dark abyss, and I'm trying to catch hold of my tail and my mouth to hold myself up." So the ocean said, "Well, you've been trying that for a long time now, and still you haven't fallen down. How come?" "Oh, of course I haven't fallen down yet," said the fish, because I'm swimming." "Well," came the reply, "I am the great ocean, in which you live and move and are able to be a fish, and I have given all of myself to you in which to swim, and I support you all the time you swim. But here you, instead of exploring the length, breadth, and depth and height of my expanse, are wasting time, your time, pursuing your own end." I need a rim shot there. It's too late. From then on, the fish put his own end behind him where it belonged and set out to explore the ocean.
Maybe you can have all the things that you ever dreamed of. Maybe you can drive your Hummer down your gold-plated streets with your dove. Of all the things you want to buy, how do they make you feel inside? You won't find your light in the bargain bin, so you better start your path with it. Revolutionize your soul. Revolutionize your soul. Yeah. Revolutionize your soul. What if you had never seen a skyscraper or a superstar? Going up and down in an elevator, never knowing who you are. Of all the things that you have seen, do you even know where you have been? Get up right now and look towards the
Brad, let's see, am I on here? There we are, yeah. Brad, can I borrow your guitar real quick?
Oh,
Uh-oh. Don't give him a guitar. Don't turn it on. So it's Easter, and it's also April Fool's. And I just can't pass up a chance for us all to get silly. So, what am I doing? April Fool's. There we go. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick song, just a fun song. I thought about telling a series of jokes, right? It's Easter, it's April Fool's. We figure you're going to tell some jokes, do something like that, and then get serious. So instead of telling some jokes and getting serious, I figure we'll all sort of be in on the joke and get serious in a minute just together. But just to do a fun song. My uncle used to do this song when we gather around with family, and I see some of my family here, and so kind of a fun way to remember. It's kind of an Eastery type song because it's about chickens and eggs. And those are kind of Eastery, right? Little chicks. I don't know. How many of you got chicks during Easter when you were a kid? Some of you got little chicks. And anybody get bunnies when you were a kid? Some of you got bunnies. Anybody decorate your house with chicks and bunnies? Yeah, okay. Some of you aren't admitting the truth, but yeah. So here's a little simple song. It's really easy. This is your part. You just repeat after me. Oh, I once had a hen. You're going to have to let really go. Just let go, you know? All right. You're going to have to lose yourself. The Bible says if you lose yourself, you will find yourself. So you're going to have to lose yourself here for a minute, okay? Oh, I once had a hen. No eggs would it lay. Oh, I once had a hen. No eggs would it lay. My wife said, honey, it sure ain't funny. We're losing money. So why won't it give eggs? And then this rooster came in our yard and took that hen right off its guard. And this is your part. It's giving eggs now, just like it used to before that rooster came in our yard. Sing that with me. It's giving eggs now, just like it used to before that rooster came in our yard. Some of you are looking at me going like, where are you going with this? I once had a gum tree. No gum would it give. I once had a gum tree. No gum would it give. My wife said, honey, it sure ain't funny. We're losing money. So why won't it give gum? And then this rooster came in our yard and took that gum tree right off its guard. It's getting a little weird now. What's it giving? It's giving chicklets just like it used to before that rooster came in our yard. It's giving chicklets just like it used to before that rooster came in our yard. There's only like 100 verses to this thing. I once had an automobile factory. No cars would it give. I once had an automobile factory. No cars would it give. My wife said, honey, we're losing money. It sure ain't funny. So why won't it give cars? And then this rooster came in our yard, did the absolutely ridiculous right off its guard. And what's it giving? It's giving hatchbacks just like it used to before that rooster came in our yard. It's giving hatchbacks just like it used to before that rooster came in our yard. We'll do just one more verse before I lose you here. This is a religious theme. I once had a monastery. No monks would it give. I once had a monastery. No monks would it give. My wife said, honey, it sure ain't funny. We're losing money. So why won't it give monks? And then this rooster came in our yard and took that monastery right off its guard. What's it giving? Thank you. It's giving friars just like it used to before that rooster came in our yard. It's giving friars just like it used to before that rooster came in our yard. All right. April Fool's silly moment. It's really fun to think about Easter on April Fool's because there is this sense in which April Fool's, Easter is kind of like the cosmic joke. It's kind of like this idea that all along we have been and lived in the midst of God's love, and yet somehow we keep forgetting it. The resurrection is less about bodily resuscitation and more about life resuscitation. It's really so much less about just bodily resuscitation. As a friend of mine, a burgeoning friend of mine, I've had a couple of encounters now with Brian McLaren. Some of you guys know who he is, the theologian and writer and speaker around the country. And as I was sitting in a small group and we were studying together, there's about 20 of us over in Dallas, and I remember something he said. He said those very words, it's less about bodily resurrection, about bodily resuscitation. Because if it was, wouldn't there just be hundreds of thousands of Lazarites everywhere? Right? When Jesus raised Lazarus, bodily resuscitation, that's not what resurrection is about. That's such a limited understanding. If you can't accept it in your life as a way of knowing that what God seeks is life resuscitation, life lived more fully, then we miss the whole point. We miss the whole point of his ministry. I read this verse that we used last week. I had Travis, thank you, Travis. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I'm remembering this, and I'm remembering that, and I'm forgetting who you people are, so I'm sorry. I only have so much room in my brain these days. Travis read this verse, this beautiful verse from Isaiah that we read last week from the 58th chapter, and it's such a profound verse. It echoes what Jesus' life echoes what that verse was all about, right? God is speaking through Isaiah, the prophet is speaking to the Jewish people, and they've been living a life of piety, right? Everything's focused around their beliefs and their rigid practices and their ritual practices, and he says, that's fine, but when you do that, you complain that you don't find me anywhere. And why is that? Perhaps it's because it's not really what I'm looking for, says God. What I'm looking for is reaching out to those in need. What I'm looking for is a fast that is about giving of yourself to others. What I'm looking for is someone who's paying attention to the world around them and connecting in passionate, compassionate, just kinds of ways. And then as it says at the end of the text, this beautiful line, which I think is amazing, it says, if you do that, when you do that, I am here. What a profound idea. It's not like call on me and I'll be here. It's like our fish swimming around and suddenly forgetting where he or she was, already swimming in the midst of life. It's like the Wizard of Oz, if you remember that movie. It's this wonderful, wonderful scene in there. I love the Wizard of Oz. And right, they've been sent out after this magical wizard that they meet, this profound voice that echoes and booms and sends them out on this task. And as they get out on the task, they find they've had all these complications, but they finally achieve what they were supposed to do after following this yellow brick road. We all have yellow brick roads. We just get off track. We just lose our paths sometimes. And sometimes we expect the path to be in front of us. But when they finally come back, they're saying to the wizard, okay, we did what you asked. And all of a sudden they noticed the curtains open, right? And that great line, which is one of my favorite, the emperor is naked kinds of lines, that is so profoundly true for so much of life. And they say, they're pointing to who's behind the deal, and the wizard turns around and says, pay no attention to the guy behind the curtain. And suddenly it's all up. There's this inauthenticity that's being practiced that somehow doesn't resonate. But when the wizard finally comes out after having been exposed, he acknowledges the truth as well. You've had it all along. It's been with you all along. You couldn't find it, perhaps, because you were asking for something specific. Make me brave. Make me wise. Give me my home. Get me back home. We've been asking for all these specific things when in reality the answers have always been there. Brian McLaren has another great phrase. He wrote a book entitled, We Make the Path by Walking. It's such a profound, simple idea, but that's what Isaiah is all about. Isaiah is, so you want to experience me? You want to experience the presence of God? Then you reach out. You reach out to one another. As Martin Buber would say, when we meet authentically, there God is in the midst. Life becomes new. Just try it. Just think about the times where you have really not just borne your soul because you had an agenda, but you opened up because you felt free. Or someone opened up to you and you freely received. And tell me that wasn't an ecstatic moment when that happened. Because we experience something beyond ourselves. We experience a larger reality than ourselves. And that's what resurrection is all about. Opening to God in the midst of our lives because it brings new life. When Linda and I were in Philadelphia this last week, we went to Philadelphia primarily because we were trying to take a little bit of a break. Linda was doing a wedding for members of our church who had a destination wedding with their daughters from New York now and living in New York. And so we had it in Cape May, New Jersey. And we decided this was going to be a non-work trip. I didn't do any work. We were going to take a few extra days. She wasn't going to do any work. We were going to have sort of a birthday vacation. I shared with you last week how we met this individual on the street, Devin, in a profound sort of encounter that sort of changed the rest of our trip for us. We had all sorts of meetings like that. You have them too. So I'm sure that if I illustrate, just sharing my story, you've got these same stories of encounters where you simply opened up. Lyft has been a real opportunity to do that for me. Not every Lyft driver is willing to sort of connect at that level, but every now and then they are, and suddenly we discover we're from different worlds and yet we share similar interests, but not even interests, similar passions. And perhaps not even passions, but similar desires to simply open up. And that's a profound thing, right? Because most of our lives we live it like this. That we have these opportunities to always simply open up and see what happens. So we're opening up to this guy, and his name is Anzar, and he's driving a Lyft, and he's picking us up at the airport, and he's going to take us to our hotel in Philadelphia. And he came from Uzbekistan, and his wife came from there, and she's in medical school at Jefferson University, and he just finished studying business at Jefferson, but he says, you know, I drive. I'm not about to try to imitate his accent. Pretty good Jack Nicholson. That was pretty good Jack Nicholson, by the way, Jakey. I don't know where you were, but if y'all picked up on that, well, you just not know. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. So he's sharing with us that he got there and he was hoping for this new life and business. I said, how long you lived here? And he says, 10 years now. I'm a citizen, and my wife's a citizen, and I drive on the side, you know, just to kind of make a little extra money. He said, our goal isn't to live here in this snowy, country where you can't predict what the weather's going to be like, but it could snow at any moment. Our goal is to live in San Diego. So he says, we're going to go there eventually, but I'm just trying to save money. We said, that's awesome. He says, well, what do you do? And we're not usually ones to go like, oh, we're a minister. How about Lyft confessions now? We're not about to do that, but on this particular thing seemed innocent and free enough, and Linda said, well, I'm a minister. And he kind of slowed down and looked in the mirror, and he says, isn't it amazing? I love America. My wife will be a doctor, and you are a minister. Who would have thought, And I said, well, that's not the only thing. I said, I'm a minister too. He said, that's amazing. Wait till I tell my wife. I met 2 ministers and they sleep with their ministers. She will laugh, he said. That'll be so much fun. So we just had this great time. It was like we'd met this new friend, and then he dropped us off at the hotel, and he said, we were going to tip him, and he says, no, you don't leave tips, but my son drives for Lyft and Uber, so we left him a tip. And he said, just give me a good rating. But it was such a great experience. And we found that to be true wherever we went. And so when we were at Cape May, we were at the wedding party, and all these strangers who didn't know each other, except for little pockets of friends from different parts of the country. And this first night we're all visiting, and someone looks over to me, one of the young adults, and he says, he's probably in his early 30s, late 20s, and he says, so did you hear Cape May is celebrating their 2nd annual St. Patty's Day polar plunge tomorrow morning? And I said, I did not hear that. He said, I'm thinking about going. He said, would you do that if I did that? Now, it may be because he'd had a few beers. I'm not sure what got him into doing that. It wasn't my excuse for agreeing to do it. It wasn't because of that. My excuse was I just turned 60, and I thought, well, what can I do when I'm 60 but jump in 32-degree water and see if I survive? So I said, sure, I'll do it if you do it. And so a couple of them decided they would do it, and I decided to do it. And the next morning, there we are standing. Now, the night before, I wanted to make sure that this wasn't just a foolhardy thing to do. So I got online and started researching what are the dangers of jumping into 32-degree water, when it's 25 degrees outside. And, of course, hypothermia within 50 or 60 seconds, and then you go unconscious within about 5 minutes. But other than that, not a problem. So I didn't figure I'd be in more than 15 or 20 seconds. And Linda's like, if you're going to do this, then you need to get with that other guy. Y'all take cold showers tonight and stand outside in the 20-mile-an-hour wind where it's 25 degrees. And if you can stand out there for over a minute, then I'll let you go. So that's what we did. Two idiots standing in our boxer shorts, soaking wet, outside on the patio at about midnight and freezing to death. And then the next morning we met. And it was the most wonderful community. It was all for a good cause. It was all for something called Family Promise, which was the local Cape May efforts at home dealing with homelessness and for families who are in need of shelter and such. And so it was a great cause, and we all donated to that and got our T-shirt. But the one thing was how many people come from all these backgrounds. They were from all over the country in Cape May for different reasons, including the people from Cape May. And the whole town comes out to support these strangers who have decided to take a crazy plunge in the water just for the sheer silliness of it, foolishness of it, but at the same time raising money for their local efforts. And so they were there with towels and with bathrobes and one lady with a fur coat. And they were all there to watch us go in, and then the EMTs were about 30 feet into the water. They only got about this high into the water. They said, you can't go past here or you probably won't make it back. And so they stood there to kind of give us a boundary, and then we all ran in. Just before we ran in, there was one of the locals there who was a woman probably in her 40s. And if you look online, you can see her picture next to me. She's standing like this, focused, just piercing focus on the ground. And she says to me while looking at the ground, she says, this is my third time to swear I'll never do this again. And then she just starts running, and we all start running, and I probably was in for 5 seconds, maybe 10. I jumped in the water, turned around, came running back out. I can't feel my feet, I can't feel my feet, I can't feel my feet. And then they threw a towel or a bathrobe around me. People brought out chowder. The whole community came out. But here's the fun thing, right? Here's the fun thing. The rest of the day, I'm walking along carrying my blue towel from the local place, Zante's, which was a crab shack, and I'm carrying it around because they gave it to me. And as people see it, they say, oh, you did the plunge. Thanks for giving to our community. And everywhere I went, there would be other people with towels. Can you feel your feet yet? But everyone came out, and it was part of this support and this sense of belonging suddenly that wasn't there in a strange community. And this is my point to all of that, aside from the sheer foolishness of it. We all have this longing to belong, right? We all have this desire. I've said this before, we wear the shirt that has the sign on it that says, love me. But here's the thing that it didn't occur to me until I started thinking about resurrection. What's underneath that sign? Underneath that sign may be the implicit sense or belief, maybe I'm not lovable, right? Maybe I'm not accepted. And the whole point of resurrection is God's final exclamation point to simply say, accept your acceptance and walk your path. When we do that, we follow what Isaiah had said, and we begin to live out that life of love. Wendell Berry. Band, where's the band? Hey, y'all come on up, band. Y'all can finish in just a second here. Wendell Berry said this wonderful statement that reminded me of a story. You know, Martin Buber, who I mentioned earlier, the Jewish theologian, he had once told this little story about a rabbi named Susha. And Rabbi Susha had told his disciples as he was laying on his deathbed, his disciples noticed how upset he was, and they said, Rabbi, you're going to glory. You're going to be with God eternal, and you seem so upset. And Rabbi Susha was almost tears in his eyes and crying, and he said, I am worried But no, Rabbi. No, they said, Rabbi, you have lived a good life. No, that is not it, he said. I am worried. He said, what I am worried about is that when I get there in heaven, I'll stand before my Creator. And it won't be that my Creator will ask me, why weren't you more like Moses? Why weren't you more like Elijah or Isaiah? He said, my Creator will suddenly stand before me and say, why weren't you more like Susha? And Wendell Berry said once, he said, resurrection is like this. It's how we practice being alive. Because part of who you are is who you will become. Amen.
Everybody's got a reason for being here. Sometimes it's hard to find. You
Hey everybody, special thanks to Hannah Kirby for being with us this morning. Always a joy to have you with us. And Brad, and
That's Miles Belvin on the trumpet down there on the far. That's your left.
good to have you. And I feel like the host of a talk show, at the end of which I always have to say my apologies to Lauren and to Claire and Elena, and then to Laurie for skipping and forgetting that we were going to fit a song with ukuleles right there in the early part, and I ended up moving a different direction like I sometimes do because I'm ADD. And so I hope you will come in the next week or two and we'll do it again, and I hope you all will join us because we worked up a beautiful piece, Come Thou Fount, with ukulele and such, but it's after. I just didn't think there's anything we ought to do after that. That was just so moving, so thank you for that. And here's the cool thing, we hope to have her back a whole lot in the near future, so that'll be cool. She and her family are so much in love with us, and we're in love with them, and so glad they come all the way out here freely of their own to be a part of this community from East Texas. She's going to be doing a recording in here coming up late in April, so we'll be watching for news about that. You guys, let's all stand for a blessing. It's so good to see you all here this morning. Stick around, visit a little bit afterwards. The band's going to do some music to take us out afterwards. But for now, if you'll just take a hand beside you, and let's have a blessing. Holy One, as we leave this place, we leave with our minds open and our hearts open. We find ourselves in so many confused and circuitous paths that we get lost from time to time. We are like the fish seeking out our own end, even when our own end is somewhat destroying us and preoccupying us in ways that keep us from living fully. In spite of that, may we be open as we leave this place. May we be reminded that we are indeed live and move and have our being and life in you, and you in us, that we may give birth to you in new ways in our own being as well. Bless us from this place until we come back together again. We pray it in the name of the one in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen.